Even though Henry Winkler's parents got away from Nazi Germany, they couldn't stop calling him "dumb dog." He felt bad about himself because school was hard for him because he couldn't read or do math. After that, he went to Hollywood. He could barely ride the motorbike that made him famous. Relationships with other group members were not what they seemed to be. How TV bosses changed his life for good. The real story of what happened to many people would die because of Henry Winkler. He was born on October 30, 1945, in Manhattan. His parents had just barely gotten away from Nazi Germany. They left everything behind that year in 1939. My uncle didn't make it. He was late and died in the Holocaust. That tragedy will never leave my mind. Having a family was like a cloud over Henry's childhood. His dad rebuilt their New York lumber business, where his mother also worked. They thought that money and schooling would keep them safe, but Henry didn't fit their plan. He didn't understand why school was important. Struggled and failed to improve his grades. His folks did not support him. Which is why they called him a dumb dog and took away his TV when he failed. Kept him from going outside and beat him over and over. He wasn't lazy, it was just couldn't say what was wrong. His house wasn't quiet either. Fought a lot, and their home was full of loud fights. Henry felt small and like he felt very bad about himself by the time he was in high school because he could never do anything right. He thought he was stupid and no one knew he had dyslexia. He had trouble reading. He had trouble spelling and math, so teachers put him in the corner. When he stumbled over words, his classmates laughed. He never told anyone how much it cost. He wasn't aware that he had a real illness until he realized it happened. He was 31 years old and his nephew was diagnosed first. That's when Henry finally got it. Afterward, he said, "I wasn't stupid. I had something with the name." Everything changed at that moment. It made sense of why school had always been so hard to understand, why he had to remember everything instead of reading it. But before that, something in him wouldn't give up. When he was 14, he made up his mind, not want him to become an actress. They wanted him to join the family business was acting, but when he went on stage, the shame was different. He wasn't lost anymore. In 8th grade, he played Billy Budd in a play. People clapped at the school play. For once, he didn't feel broken. The cheers lasted. Accompanying him, he kept looking for that feeling. He improved his ability to remember lines, found ways to hide the fact that he had trouble reading. In high school, he joined talks to not do any writing work. He knew how to act even in class. His shield, he kept going. After high school, he sent applications to 28 colleges, and Emerson College in Boston was one of the two he got into. As a backup, he also studied child psychology and Emerson's writing. First 2 years were almost failures, but something clicked on stage. What his teachers saw that regular classes couldn't was real ability. He joined found friends in the group and slowly gained confidence. He graduated in 1967. After many years, the same school gave him an honors doctorate. His next goal was the Yale School of Drama, but it was a long shot. He had to play Shakespeare at the audition, which was hard. But when the time came, he forgot every line and his mind went blank. Then he did something brave. He made it up on the spot. His quick thinking paid off. The judges saw his natural ability. He needed the break after being accepted. At Yale, the pressure was too much. Writing the scripts was hard. It took him days to do it, but he kept going. He trusted his memory and his gut. If he forgot something, he made something up quickly and easily. His peers praised his energy, but teachers didn't see it. He later said he had in 1970, he didn't read a script word for word, he just did what worked. Completed the program. Out of 25 actors who started, only 11 ended. That year, he was chosen for the Yale Repertory Theater. That chance was only given to 3 students. He made $173 a week. The shows were exciting and Shakespeare's works, new plays, and creative pieces. He played everything. He worked non-stop, and it was the best place to learn. Even back then, dyslexia stayed secret. He had to work harder than everyone else to get ready. He took days to learn the lines by heart. When the scripts didn't work, he made them up. When he later appeared in Neil Simon's, he knew how to handle things because he asked for the script months early for plays in the fall of 1971. Henry Winkler thought he had finally earned his big break. He had just finished, was cast in Moon Children, and had a steady job at the Yale Repertory Theater, where she made $173 a week. Was held at the famous Arena stage in Washington, D.C. But what began as the dream turned into a nightmare after only 3 weeks of practice. When Alan's sharp reasons led Schneider to fire him, Winkler was never meant to stay. He was shocked to learn that Winkler had only been a stand-in until the director's favorite actor became available. Said his mind was like cream cheese and the director's words sounded like they were far away. He was so sad that he put his snow tires back on his car and drove back. The whole way to New York City I was crying. That lonely ride home wasn't just about losing his job, it was about losing faith in himself. He kept thinking that maybe he wasn't really there. Heck, Winkler wasn't ready to quit acting just yet. He came up with a plan back in New York in case big theater work wouldn't happen. Possibly ads could pay the bills. From 1971 to 1973, he got about 30 advertising jobs. They weren't exciting, but they gave him experience that every actor needed. A steady income. With that money in the bank, he joined They went to the Manhattan Theater Club and did a show for free. It wasn't about the money. Sticking in the game, getting better, and proving something to himself. At the same time, Off the Wall New York, a comedy group, convinced me to join. Moving ads gave him freedom, theater gave him authority and the chance to improvise. In ways that writing could never do, it pushed him and helped him grow. Then he got his chance at Broadway on March 11 from Every Angle. Winkler first appeared on Broadway in 1973 in a show called 42 Seconds from Broadway. Most performers would never forget that moment. It was memorable, but for the wrong reasons. The show began and ended. On the same night, only one show. All the hope and work, years of hard work and hopes were shattered in just 24 hours, as Winkler promised. He told himself that night that he would make things right one day, but he wasn't going to let one bad night be the main event of his story. That same year he began getting his start in movies. He got a part in The Lords of Flatbush, a dark story. Winkler played Bucci Weinstein in the show about Brooklyn greasers in the 1950s. There was a new actor named Sylvester Stallone in the movie with him. At the same time he got screen time and training in a low-budget movie, hired to play a part in Crazy Joe as a guy named Manny. They weren't Hollywood hits, but they were important because they pointed him in a new direction. Had a hard time with tryouts, especially cold readings, because he hadn't been diagnosed with. He had trouble reading, but he learned how to get around it. He found his own way to understand. Jobs kept coming in because people could see how he read scripts and showed feeling. Raw ability hidden by quiet anxiety that can't be seen. Ignore what happened that summer was out of the ordinary. His agent kept pushing him to Hollywood. Wasn't appealing to Winkler. He saw himself more as a New Yorker actor who started out doing work on stage, but he finally agreed to try Los Angeles. For 1 month only as a test. He paid for it with money from his ads. He brought his friend Perry King with him to help pay for the trip. Began in Los Angeles on September 18, 1973. In just 5 days, everything changed. He had a small part on the Mary Tyler Moore Show as a guest star. It was shown on one of the country's most watched shows. That moment opened the door to auditions. Hollywood suddenly didn't seem so far away as interest grew. That first part as a second interview followed because of a really awkward dinner guest. It was only 6 lines for Happy Days, and he wasn't what the writers were looking for. They were looking for a tall, beautiful blonde. Winkler was 5 feet 6 inches and he had dark hair and wasn't at all like that, but he was still called back for one more as he entered the room on his birthday, October 30th. Turned up his voice, read the lines, and then threw the paper away. Nothing was said as they left the room, leaving everyone in shock. He got the call that same day. The part was his, but he had one request. Not only wanted to play a cool guy, but he also wanted to show that this character had a heart. That brave interview not only gave him that chance, it changed the history of TV when Happy Days started in January 2014. Winkler's Fonzie was only meant to be a helper. In the first he had to stand in front of a mirror and comb his hair like in all the other 1950s greasers, but Winkler thought that was too clear. With cameras rolling, he lifted the comb, looked in the mirror, and nodded like a king. The comb away, showing Fonzie that he didn't need to fix his hair. Producers said it wasn't good enough, but Winkler stood his ground. A small move that became the core of Fonzie's charm: calm, sure, and easy. Cool. The figure went from being in the background to being a star in an instant. But that cool picture was almost never able to take off because of one thing about his jacket. They were afraid that letting Fono wear leather would make him look like a bad guy, so they made him wear Winkler wore jackets made of cloth, including a bright green one that looked. The show's director, Gary Marshall, had an idea. He persuaded ABC that Fonzie was wrong. For his own safety, he could only wear leather when he was near his motorbike. Marshall then put Fonzie's motorbike in almost every scene, even when it didn't make sense. After season 2, the leather jacket was always there. It became so well known that Winkler gave one to the Smithsonian in 1980, and it is still there as a popular item in American society. That motorcycle did have a secret, though. It scared Henry Winkler so much that he couldn't even try to ride it. Bikes he rode it uphill just once for 17 seconds and that was it. With his dyslexia, they asked him to move the bike just a few feet on set. The controls were hard for him to tell apart. He turned the throttle but couldn't find he let off the gas and shot forward. The camera crew dove out of the way, and he and the bike went down. Makers rushed over to see if the rent bike was broken, so they came up with a plan. They put he rode his motorcycle on a wooden board with rubber wheels, which pulled him around like a child in a wagon. It was the same one Steve McQueen used in the great movie Rumble. Escape. Back in January 1974, when Happy Days first began, Fonzie was never meant to be a star. In the pilot, Richie Cunningham, played by Ron Howard, only had 6 words. Meant to be the main focus, but in December of that year, everything changed. Fono got a lot of attention in a Christmas episode, and the crowd went crazy. Over 20,000 screaming fans surrounded Winkler just to see him in a department store in Dallas. The numbers went through the roof on ABC. They changed the show to focus on Fonzie and even considered changing the name to Fonzie's Happy Days by season 3. He played the major role. At Christmas, the network matched all of the cast. Members. Winkler got a VCR worth a lot of money afterward. Ron Howard later said he felt not given much attention on his own show, but Fonzie kept getting bigger. His leather jacket, he went to the Smithsonian and used the words, "A" and "sit" on it over and over again. TV Guide named him the fourth best TV character of all time in 1999. It was 1984 when Happy Days finished, and Henry Winkler was one of the most recognizable faces in, although his phone stopped ringing after the cameras stopped rolling in America. No one would hire him for almost 10 years. He was just the FS. Executives couldn't look past the cool guy's leather jacket, catchphrases, or Henry said it caused him crippling mental pain, even though he had a loving family. He felt lost even though he had a roof over his head and the lead in Grease. The choice was meant to avoid stereotyping, but it didn't matter in any of the screening rooms. Just seeing Fonzie broke Henry, but he didn't give up. He changed direction while he was still having a good time and started his own business in secret. By 1987, he had a deal with a big company. He wasn't just working for Dinkum Productions. He stopped playing and started working on real projects. One of the biggest was MacGyver. Became a huge hit and even won a Genesis Award in 1991. He also helped bring the Sure Thing sightings, and so weird he was no longer in front of the camera, but behind it, when his name started showing up in the credits. That was enough to keep him in. He directed Memories in 1988, which was another big step forward. From Me, a touching movie with Billy Crystal. 5 years later, he was in charge of Cop a Half, which starred Burt Reynolds. It wasn't a big hit, but it was made by he used to work with Ron Howard, who is an old friend from Happy Days. Meanwhile, Henry was showing off again, but this time without the FS. He won an Emmy for something he wasn't supposed to have won for. Creating and directing a 1984 CBS school break special with Scott Baio, it dealt with important problems teens face and won him a Daytime Emmy for Outstanding Children's Special. Lifeline, Hollywood kept turning him down as an actor, but behind the scenes, they were seeing how talented he was. The scenes, he kept working in kids' shows and won more awards. They didn't care if he was Fonzie. They just knew he could storytell. Even though all of this was going on, Henry's personal life was rock strong. He married Stacy Weitzman in 1978. She had a boy named Jed who was only 10 years old. They loved Fonzie before Henry came into their lives, and they had 2 more children together. Youngsters Zoe in 1980 and Max in 1983. They had 6 grandkids, one of whom is 11 years old. In every place Henry's grandfather visits, Ace and Henry have a tradition of getting shot glasses. Henry loves taking them with him. He went all out for meals and shows when asked what kept them together. Not just liking, but also listening is what it's all about. Behind the charm and success, Henry kept a secret pain from when he was a kid. One night, when Jed was Henry told him to live up to by scolding him for not being able to do his schoolwork. His abilities, it seemed strangely familiar. That's why he and Stacy put Jed through tests. When dyslexia was diagnosed, everything fell into place. Henry knew he had it too when he was 31 years old. All those years of battling and back to school, all the anger, shame, and self-doubt. It wasn't being lazy, it was something named it made him very angry. He told me that all the pain I'd been through he had been failing at being the coolest guy on TV while it was all for nothing. Sitting quietly at the table read scripts while tripping over lines and feeling like a deceit. His parents, who had fled Nazi Germany, were looking for perfection. Instead, they saw he knew the truth, which was very different from what they said, and it diagnosed with cancer didn't just fix him. It drove him. Both of his Zoe and Max, his children, were later diagnosed as well. He became very loud and proud. Voice for dyslexia awareness, who was determined to keep other kids from having to go through what he did. Didn't stop there. In 1990, Henry and Stacy joined forces. The Children's Action with Steven Spielberg and Kate Capshaw. Their goal is to help kids get shots and find adoptive homes. Through the years, they helped more than 200,000 kids get shots. Henry didn't just make it through Hollywood. He won the Norma Zarki Humanitarian Award, came along and found a way to make it serve a greater purpose. In December 1994, Sandler sang the Chanukah song on Saturday Night Live, and they said that Fonzie was a quarter Jewish. As a result of the joke, Henry called Sandler to thank him. Grew into a bond. That friendship saved his life 4 years later. Career. In 1998, Sandler was filming The Water Boy when something terrible happened to his actor for Coach Clean quit at the last minute. Sandler called at 11:30 p.m. Winkler in a hurry. "Henry, I need a favor," he said. Winkler didn't think twice. He got ready, drove to the set, and stayed there until 3:30 a.m. that night. Sprint turned into a big hit at the box office. The Water Boy made $190 million around the world on only $20 million to work with. That's crazy. Winkler laughed later that while Sandler given Maseratis to his adult co-stars and all he got in return was a cookie. Gifted something else. He was back. That one part led to many more with Sandler. He appeared in the movies Little Nicky Click and You Don't Mess with the Zohan and Sandy. That wasn't all, though. Winkler finally had a chance to act again. In 2003, Arrested Development gave him a new kind of the spotlight. He was only meant to show up once, but Barry, a hilariously bad lawyer named Zuckerhorn, became a regular, and Winkler stayed for 5 years. It ran for 32 episodes over 3 years and was full of smart and laughter. In one scene, Barry jumped over a shark on a pier. A reference to the famous one of Fonzie's actions is what made the phrase, "jumping the shark," popular. Just like in Happy Days, Scott Baio was going to replace Barry. Baio even said, "This isn't that's the first time I've filled in for Barry." Fans loved it. Even though Winkler did comedy again, he showed that he could also do drama on the In Practice. He played Dr. Henry Olsen in a very serious emotional part from 1999 to 2000. It led to a nomination for an Emmy, his first real mention in almost 20 years. Happened just as he was working hard to get out from under Fonzie's shadow. Winkler wasn't done shocking people in parks, and he played Dr. Lou Saperstein in Recreation. A clueless and overly loving father to two of the most crazy people on the show were Gene Railio and Mona Lisa. Backed up every word when Mona Lisa yelled, "I have done nothing wrong," his answer was right away, "I know this and I love you." Your parenting style was a mess, but it made for great comedy. Because his kids told him a lie, and they tried to ruin Tom Ford's business. In the end, he helped them. Imagine lying about dying to open a casino in Tajikistan. That's crazy. Backstage, something that only Winkler could make plausible and funny. Besides that, he got a small deal in 2003 to write 2 children's books. The first 2 books in the Hank Zipper series are about a kid who has dyslexia, led to 17 books. Then came Here's Hank with 12 more. Finally, Ghost came out. Friends, Alien Superstar, and Detective Duck. That's a total of 38 books, BBC even. A show about Hank Zipper, and Winkler played Mr. Rock, a teacher based on regarding a person who helped him as a child. The Christmas special ran in 2016, all of HBO Max started streaming in 2022. His stories reached kids all over the world, and many of them, like Winkler, had trouble reading and writing. Then came Barry. In 2016, when Winkler heard he worked, she asked HBO if they could get him to try out. Taking time with his son Max to get ready to play Gene Casino Gone was cold and sarcastic, but Winkler gave the part heart. He made Gone more human. That act finally got him his first with 43 years to wait. He finally won an Emmy in 2018. The crowd stood when he got on stage and said, "I wrote this 43 years ago." He also said, "If you stay at the table long enough, the chips will come to you. And tonight, I gotta clear the table." He only had 19 seconds to talk, but he used them all well. Of them matter, the pandemic pushed back Barry's third season, production stopped. Down in March 2020. It took 2 years to get back up and running. By the time shooting started again Winkler was in his mid-70s in 2022 and had to follow strict CO rules. Fewer people were testing all the time on set, but there was no crowd. It was worth it, though. Received high praise, Winkler kept giving strong efforts. Having both dark humor and real emotion, the awards came after 2 reviewers' picks. Receives 4 Emmy nominations, 4 SAG nominations.